1,000 FBI agents working around the clock, 24/7 shifts. For weeks, their mission? Not stopping terrorists, not fighting cybercrime, not rescuing trafficking victims, reviewing documents. 100,000 pages. Looking for a single name? Donald Trump. That's the allegation. From a whistleblower inside the FBI, agents pulled from national security cases, from child exploitation investigations, from ransomware units, all to scrub references to the former president from Jeffrey Epstein's records before public release. And when Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren asks FBI Director Patel about it in a congressional hearing, his answer is telling, not denial, not outrage, just evasion. I don't know how many times the name appears. Resources were flexed, not diverted. These reports are inaccurate, but he won't say how they're inaccurate. He won't provide the real numbers. He won't explain why 1,000 agents were needed for document review when crimes are going unsolved. What you're about to witness isn't just another Washington hearing. It's a window into how powerful people use the machinery of government to protect themselves, how justice gets politicized, how transparency becomes theater. Stay with me. Because what happened in this hearing reveals everything wrong with how the Epstein investigation has been handled from the start.
Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm concerned by reports that FBI agents have been diverted from their important work on crime and anti-terrorism to work on matters that are not critical to our safety. I'd like to play the video, the whole video.
Jeffrey
clip.
Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Or
So, but the Black Book, it's not just sitting, I mean, that's Hoover power times 10.
And to me, that's a thing I think President Trump should run on. On day one, roll out the Black Book.
In contrast to that attitude of let it all out, we're getting reports of actions that run contrary to getting everything out and that also involve diversions of FBI resources. For example, an FBI whistleblower reported that you were pressured by the Attorney General to place 1,000 personnel on 24-hour shifts to mine roughly 100,000 Epstein-related records to redact President Trump's name from the files. Bloomberg reported this, that you directed FBI special agents from the New York and Washington field offices to join the Bureau's FOIA employees in Winchester and another building a few miles away, and that while reviewing the Epstein files, FBI personnel identified numerous references to Trump in the documents, and people familiar with the matter said that Trump's name, along with other high-profile individuals, was blacked out. Now, the New York Times reports, and this is a quote, Justice Department officials diverted hundreds of FBI employees and federal prosecutors from their regular duties to go through the documents at least 4 times, including once to flag any references to Mr. Trump and other prominent figures. Details of the review were based on accounts by 3 former FBI and Justice Department officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because of fears of retaliation, and further that the FBI finished, after they finished its review of the files and materials, was sent to a team of Justice Department lawyers who double-checked the FBI's redactions and, quote, were instructed to flag any mentions of Mr. Trump and other celebrities. Now, I have 3 questions for you, Mr. Patel, about this. First, how many times did President Trump's name appear in the Epstein files? Was it more than 100, more than 1,000? Were the agents who were pulled from their duties to redact the president's name from the Epstein files working on criminal cases or national security cases or child sex trafficking cases? And are the number of agents that have been reported diverted for these purposes, is that accurate?
No.
No what?
You asked if it was accurate. I said it wasn't.
So you're saying that none of this happened? That,
No, I'm saying it was inaccurate.
okay. How many times did President Trump appear in the Epstein files? More than 100? More than 1,000?
No, and what we've been able to release is what we've been legally able to release, and that has been
No, that's not
provided
the
to
question.
public.
I asked you, how many times did the president's name appear?
I don't know.
It's your testimony. You do not know that
The
answer.
number of times, no.
Could you tell us how many agents were diverted for this task and what they were working on?
when you say diverted, you make it seem as if agents were pulled off what they do all the time. Agents at the FBI masterfully do double duty and triple duty. And because of the public's interest in this case, we flex resources to make sure that we could answer the public's signal demand. So do you want us to look through the material and provide it to you, or you do not want us to do that?
So it's
Which
your
one is it?
it's your testimony that no one was diverted from a criminal matter, that this was a top priority to go through this material to look for Mr. Trump's name. Is that your testimony? That's the highest priority for the FBI?
What's one of the most impressive things about the FBI leadership and the careers that are in place is that they make the decisions on who to send where on priorities and make sure the mission needs are not hurt. And that's what happened here.
It's shocking to me.
To understand this confrontation, you need to understand what we're talking about. Jeffrey Epstein's records, his black book, his flight logs, his calendars, his photographs, years of documentation, meticulously kept, names, dates, locations, contact information for hundreds of powerful people. When Epstein was arrested in 2019, federal agents seized everything: his Manhattan mansion, his Palm Beach estate, his private island, his planes, and inside all of it, records, physical documents, digital files, hard drives, phones, tablets. Some of it became evidence in criminal trials. Epstein's, Ghislaine Maxwell's. But most of it remained sealed, protected by court orders, hidden from public view, until recent legal decisions required some of it to be released. Court filings from civil cases, deposition transcripts, flight logs. That's when things got interesting. Because before those documents could be made public, they had to be reviewed, redacted, names protected for privacy reasons. Or so we're told in that review process. That's what this hearing is about. Because according to a whistleblower, that process wasn't about protecting privacy. It was about protecting one specific person. The whistleblower's account is specific, detailed, and deeply troubling. According to their statement, the FBI assigned approximately 1,000 personnel to review Epstein-related documents. Not just agents. Support staff, analysts, lawyers. They worked in shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For multiple weeks, their instructions: review approximately 100,000 pages of documents. Flag any references to specific individuals. Ensure those references are properly redacted before public release. The primary name they were searching for? Donald Trump, but also others. Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, other celebrities and politicians whose names appear in Epstein's records. The whistleblower claims agents were told this was routine, just following court orders, just protecting privacy rights. But many agents were uncomfortable because they'd been pulled from active investigations, cybercrime cases where victims were waiting, child trafficking investigations where children were still being exploited, national security matters where threats were ongoing, all put on hold so they could comb through documents looking for a name. That's the allegation. And it's backed up by reporting from Bloomberg, the New York Times, and other outlets, all citing anonymous sources, all describing the same massive document review operation. Now, Congresswoman Lofgren wants answers, and she's not accepting deflection. The hearing room is tense. Other questions have already established the stakes. References to Epstein's black book, calls for full disclosure, suggestions that the FBI is hiding something. Now Zoe Lofgren has the floor, a veteran congresswoman, former chair of committees, someone who knows how to ask questions officials can't dodge. She looks directly at FBI Director Patel. No preamble. No warm-up questions. Director Patel, I want to ask you about the Epstein document review process. Patel nods, trying to look cooperative. But his body language suggests he knows what's coming. Specifically, I want to ask about reports that the FBI assigned up to 1,000 personnel to review these documents, working 24/7 shifts. Is that accurate? Patel's face tightens. Representative Lofgren, I've seen those reports. They're not accurate. Then what are the accurate numbers? Pause. I don't have the exact figures in front of me. You're the FBI director. You don't know how many agents worked on this? It wasn't 1,000. That's a significant exaggeration. So what was it? 500? 200? Give me a number. Patel shifts. I would need to consult with the team that managed that process. Lofgren doesn't let it go, because she knows what he's doing, admitting there was a massive operation but refusing to provide details that would confirm its scale. Classic bureaucratic deflection. And she's not having it. Lofgren decides to be very specific. She's going to ask 3 questions, simple, direct, the kind that should have simple answers. Director Patel, first question. How many times does Donald Trump's name appear in the Epstein documents? Patel doesn't hesitate. I don't know. You don't know. The FBI reviewed these documents extensively. Multiple passes, according to reports. And you don't know how many times the former president's name appears? I haven't personally reviewed every document, Representative, but someone at the FBI has. Correct? Our document review team has gone through the materials, yes, so they would know. They would have a count. A number? Presumably, yes, then get me that number. I want to know how many times Donald Trump's name appears in Jeffrey Epstein's records. Can you commit to providing that to this committee? Patel hedges. I would need to consult with our legal team about what can be disclosed. It's a number. How many times a name appears? That's not classified. That's not protected. That's basic information the American people deserve to know. Representative, there are privacy considerations. Privacy? For whom? Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. Who exactly are you protecting? Lofgren moves to her second question, and this one cuts deeper. Director Patel, were FBI agents pulled from other investigations to work on this document review? Patel's answer is careful. We allocated resources appropriately based on legal requirements and deadlines. That's not what I asked. Were agents working on cybercrime cases, child trafficking cases, national security cases? Were they reassigned to review Epstein documents? Resources were flexed to meet operational needs. Flexed. That's an interesting word. Lofgren pauses for effect. Let me be more direct. Did agents stop working on active criminal investigations to search documents for Donald Trump's name? The document review was a legal requirement. We had court-ordered deadlines, and you needed 1,000 agents to meet those deadlines. I've already said that number isn't accurate. Then what's the accurate number? Because if it's 500, that's still enormous. If it's 200, that's still significant. How many agents were pulled from crime fighting to do this? Patel won't give a number, because any number will sound bad. Any number will confirm that significant resources went to document review instead of active investigations. So he deflects again. Representative, we manage resources across multiple priorities constantly, but Lofgren isn't done, because she has specific examples, real cases that were delayed. Director Patel, let me tell you about some of those priorities that took a back seat. There was a ransomware investigation, a major operation. Multiple states affected, hospitals, schools, critical infrastructure. The cyber unit was making progress, closing in on the perpetrators, and then agents were pulled, reassigned to document review. The investigation stalled. By the time resources returned, trails had gone cold. There was a child trafficking case, multi-year operation, dozens of victims identified, network spanning several countries. The team was ready to make arrests, resources were diverted. The operation had to be postponed. Some suspects fled. Some victims remained in exploitation for additional months. There was a counterterrorism matter. Can't discuss details because it's classified. But I can tell you it involved an active threat. And resources being pulled affected the timeline of response. These aren't hypotheticals, Director Patel. These are real cases, real victims, real threats to national security. And they all took a back seat to making sure Jeffrey Epstein's documents were properly scrubbed before release. Does that seem like appropriate prioritization to you? Patel's response is defensive. Representative, I would dispute your characterization of events. These investigations didn't stop. They continued with adjusted resource allocation. More bureaucratic language. More evasion, Lofgren presses. So you're saying no investigations were delayed or compromised because agents were reviewing documents? I'm saying we maintained operational capability across all mission areas. That's not an answer. Lofgren shifts to her third question, and this one focuses on the reporting that brought this to public attention. Director Patel, Bloomberg reported that DOJ and FBI conducted multiple passes through these files, that DOJ lawyers specifically checked for mentions of Donald Trump and other high-profile figures, that there was particular attention paid to redacting those references. The New York Times reported similar information from different sources, corroborating the basic facts. Are these reports accurate? Patel's answer is quick. No, what part is inaccurate? The suggestion that we were targeting specific individuals for protection, but you did review for their names? We reviewed all documents consistent with court orders and privacy law. That's not what I asked. Did you specifically look for Donald Trump's name? We looked for all names that required redaction consideration. But Trump's name was specifically flagged, specifically called out to reviewers. Representative, all high-profile names received appropriate legal review, which means yes. Lofgren doesn't say it, but everyone hears it. Because appropriate legal review is another way of saying yes, we paid special attention to those names, but Patel won't admit it directly. Because admitting it would confirm what the whistleblower and the media reported, that this wasn't routine document review. It was targeted protection. Lofgren decides to address the elephant in the room, the distinction Patel keeps trying to make between legal requirements and ethical concerns. Director Patel, I understand you're claiming everything done was legally justified, following court orders, protecting privacy, meeting deadlines. Let's assume that's true. Let's assume every technical legal requirement was followed. That doesn't address the ethical question, which is, should the FBI be dedicating massive resources to protecting powerful people's reputations while crimes go unsolved? Because that's what this looks like to the American people. Jeffrey Epstein's victims are still seeking justice. His co-conspirators are still unnamed. The full extent of his network remains hidden. But the FBI's priority was making sure Donald Trump's name was properly redacted. That's the optics. And honestly, that's probably the reality. You can hide behind legal justifications all you want. But the American people see what's happening. They see an agency more concerned with protecting power than pursuing justice. Patel tries to push back. Representative, I reject that characterization entirely. The FBI is committed to investigating all crimes regardless of who's involved. Then release the documents, unredacted. Let the American people see what's in there. Let them judge for themselves who was involved and to what extent. We can't do that. Privacy law doesn't allow privacy law, the constant refrain, the shield behind which everything hides. But, as Lofgren points out, privacy law has exceptions. For public figures, for matters of public concern, for information relevant to criminal investigations. So why aren't those exceptions being applied here? Lofgren widens her focus, because this isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern. Director Patel, this isn't the first time the FBI has been accused of handling politically sensitive matters in ways that protect powerful people. The Hillary Clinton email investigation. Decisions made that seem to prioritize political considerations over prosecutorial standards. The handling of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Information suppressed at critical moments. Later confirmed, but only after elections passed. The Russia investigation. However you feel about the substance, the process was clearly influenced by political pressures from multiple directions. And now this. Massive resources dedicated to scrubbing a former president's name from documents related to a sex trafficker. Do you see why people have concerns? Why trust in the FBI is eroding? Patel's response is predictable. The FBI makes decisions based on facts and law, not politics. But that's what every FBI director says. That's what James Comey said, what Christopher Wray said, what you're saying now. The problem is, the pattern suggests otherwise. The pattern suggests an agency that's very aware of political implications and makes decisions accordingly. Not through corruption necessarily, but through caution, through risk aversion, through a culture that prioritizes not making waves over pursuing truth wherever it leads. And that culture is exactly what allowed Jeffrey Epstein to operate for decades. Because investigating him meant investigating powerful people, and that's always complicated, always politically sensitive, always risky for careers, so easier to look the other way, until you can't anymore. Now, Lofgren addresses something important, something that undercuts her argument but needs to be acknowledged. Director Patel, I want to be clear about something. These reports from Bloomberg and the New York Times, the whistleblower allegations, they rely on anonymous sources. I haven't seen the documents myself. I can't independently verify the specific numbers or processes described. So it's possible some details are wrong. Possible the scope was exaggerated. Possible the characterization is unfair. But here's what's also true. Multiple outlets reported similar information from different sources. The basic contours match. The whistleblower account aligns with the media reporting. That suggests there's substance here, that even if specific numbers are debated, something significant happened. And your response has been to deny the numbers without providing accurate ones, to claim reports are inaccurate without explaining how, to hide behind privacy and legal requirements without addressing the ethical concerns. That's not transparency. That's damage control. If these reports are wrong, prove it. Show us the real numbers. Explain the actual process. Demonstrate that resources weren't diverted inappropriately. But if you won't do that, if you just keep saying, trust us, we followed the rules, then people will believe the whistleblower. They'll believe the media reports. Because at least those sources are trying to inform the public, even if imperfectly. Patel has no good response. Because Lofgren is right. In the absence of transparency, people will believe the worst. And the FBI's secrecy guarantees they'll believe the worst. Patel finally tries to mount a real defense, not just deflection. An actual argument for why the process was necessary and appropriate. Representative Lofgren, let me explain the situation as clearly as I can. We received court orders requiring the release of certain documents. Those documents contain thousands of names, not just famous people. Ordinary individuals who had contact with Jeffrey Epstein in various contexts. The law requires us to protect privacy, not just for powerful people, for everyone who isn't directly relevant to criminal conduct. So we had to review every document, every name, every reference, and make determinations about what could be released and what needed to be redacted. That's a massive undertaking. Yes, we allocated significant resources, because we had deadlines, because the courts ordered it, because doing it properly required thoroughness. The suggestion that we were specifically protecting Donald Trump or anyone else is false. We were following legal protocols that would apply regardless of whose names appeared. It's a reasonable sounding argument, the kind that might be persuasive in isolation, but Lofgren isn't buying it, because it doesn't address the core concerns. Director Patel, if this was truly about privacy protection across the board, why are media reports specifically mentioning Trump? Why are whistleblowers specifically saying his name was flagged? If you treated all names equally, why would anyone notice particular attention to one person? The fact that multiple sources are reporting the same thing suggests something different was happening. Whether you want to call it protection or just extra caution or political awareness, something made Trump's name different from others, and you won't acknowledge that, which makes everything you're saying sound like spin rather than truth. Lofgren circles back to something Patel said earlier, a phrase he used that deserves scrutiny. Director Patel, you said resources were flexed, not diverted. Let's talk about that language. When you flex resources from a cybercrime investigation to document review, what do you call that? When you flex resources from a trafficking case to redaction work, what's the functional difference from diverting them? The work they were doing stops or slows. Other work takes priority. That's not flexing. That's reassignment. And let's be honest about what those resources were doing. They were looking for names in documents. That's not highly specialized work. That's work that could be done by paralegals, by contractors, by support staff. Instead, you used FBI agents, people trained in investigation, people with security clearances, people whose skills are desperately needed elsewhere. Why? The only explanation that makes sense is that you didn't trust anyone else. You needed people who understood the sensitivity, who could be relied upon to make the right decisions about what to flag. In other words, this wasn't routine document processing. This was something sensitive enough that you needed your most trusted personnel on it, which contradicts everything else you've said about this being routine legal compliance. Patel's response is weak. Representative, I disagree with your interpretation. Of course you do, because the alternative is admitting this was exactly what it looks like. A massive effort to carefully manage what information about powerful people became public. Lofgren shifts from specific questions to the broader issue, the one that underlies everything. Director Patel, let's talk about trust, because that's really what this hearing is about. The American people have lost trust in institutions, in government, in law enforcement, in the idea that justice applies equally, and moments like this are why. When they see massive resources dedicated to document review while crimes go unsolved. When they see evasive answers to simple questions. When they see patterns of powerful people seemingly getting special treatment, that destroys trust. And once trust is lost, it's almost impossible to rebuild. You keep saying the FBI followed the rules. Fine, I'll accept that. But following the rules isn't enough when people suspect the rules are designed to protect the powerful. You keep saying privacy law required these redactions. Fine, but privacy law has exceptions, and choosing not to use those exceptions is a choice. You keep saying resources were appropriately allocated. But appropriate according to whom? According to people inside the system who've already decided protecting certain information is more important than investigating certain crimes. The American people are telling you they don't trust that. They want transparency. They want accountability. They want to believe that justice actually is blind, and your response is to tell them to trust the process. To believe that experts know best. To accept that some things must remain secret for their own good. That's not going to work. Not anymore. Not after everything we've seen. Patel looks uncomfortable. Because Lofgren isn't wrong, and he knows it. Lofgren concludes with specific demands. Not suggestions, demands. Director Patel, here's what needs to happen. And I'm not asking. I'm telling you what this committee expects. First, provide a complete accounting of resources used for Epstein document review. Every agent, every hour, every dollar. We want to know exactly what this cost and what was delayed because of it. Second, provide the count of how many times Donald Trump's name appears in Epstein's documents. Same for Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and any other high-profile figure. The American people deserve to know. Third, explain the specific legal basis for every redaction. Not general privacy law. Specific justification for each name that was removed. Let's see if those justifications hold up to scrutiny. Fourth, release as much as legally possible. Use every exception available. Prioritize transparency over caution. Are on the side of disclosure rather than secrecy. Fifth, commit to not using FBI agents for document processing work that could be done by support staff. Your agents should be investigating crimes, not searching Word documents for names. And sixth, acknowledge that there's a trust problem. Stop pretending everything is fine. Admit that people have legitimate concerns and commit to addressing them. Can you do those things? Patel's response is bureaucratic. I can commit to continuing to work with Congress on oversight matters and providing information consistent with legal requirements. That's not a yes. That's not even close to a yes. And Lofgren's expression makes clear what she thinks of that answer. But beyond the political theater, beyond the congressional questioning, there are real victims in this story. People who are harmed by these decisions. Jeffrey Epstein's actual victims. Women who were trafficked as children, who endured unspeakable abuse, who have spent years seeking justice. They watch this unfold. They see the FBI prioritize protecting powerful people's names over pursuing the full truth of what happened to them. How does that feel? To know your abuser's network is being carefully protected while you're still fighting for acknowledgement? Then there are the victims of crimes that got delayed, the ransomware victims who suffered longer, the trafficking victims who remained in exploitation while agents were pulled for document review. They're real people with real suffering. And their cases were deprioritized so the FBI could comb through documents looking for a name. Is that justice? Is that appropriate resource allocation? Is that what we expect from our premier law enforcement agency? And finally, there are all Americans who deserve to know the truth, who deserve transparency, who deserve an institution they can trust. They're being told to wait, to be patient, to trust the experts. While information that could inform their understanding of power and corruption remains hidden, that's the real cost of what Patel is defending. Not just political embarrassment, real harm to real people. There's a simple solution to all of this. Release the documents, all of them, with minimal redactions. Let the public see. Yes, there will be privacy concerns. Deal with them through exceptions for public figures and matters of public interest. Yes, there will be political fallout. Good. If powerful people were involved with Jeffrey Epstein, they should face consequences. Yes, there will be embarrassment for some. That's unfortunate, but not sufficient reason to hide truth that documents exist. They've been reviewed extensively. They're going to come out eventually anyway, through leaks, through future court orders, through freedom of information requests. So release them now, voluntarily, as an act of transparency and accountability. Show the American people that the FBI works for them, not for powerful people who'd prefer certain information stay hidden. Show Jeffrey Epstein's victims that their suffering matters more than protecting reputations. Show everyone that no one is above the law. Not former presidents, not members of Congress, not billionaires. No one that would rebuild trust, that would demonstrate integrity, that would be actual justice. But that's not what's happening. And Patel's testimony makes clear it's not what will happen. So if transparency won't come voluntarily, it has to be forced. Through continued congressional pressure, through public demands, through sustained attention. This hearing can't be the end. It has to be the beginning. Lofgren and her colleagues need to keep asking questions, keep demanding answers, keep using every oversight tool available, subpoenas, document requests, testimony under oath, Inspector General investigations. Every mechanism Congress has should be deployed. Because Patel has made clear he won't provide information willingly. He'll only respond to compulsion. But congressional oversight only works if the public is paying attention, if people are calling their representatives, if there's political pressure to pursue answers. That's where you come in. Everyone watching this, everyone who's made it this far, this story needs to stay alive, needs to be shared, needs to be discussed, needs to create enough pressure that officials can't just wait for it to fade from the news cycle. Tweet about it, post about it, talk to your friends and family, call your representatives. Make noise, because that's the only way transparency happens. When silence becomes impossible, when the pressure to hide becomes greater than the pressure to reveal. That's what ended Epstein's protection the first time. Public pressure, media attention. Victims refusing to stay quiet. It can work again, but only if we maintain focus. Let's be clear about what this hearing revealed, not what we wish it revealed, not what spin might suggest, what actually happened. 1. The FBI dedicated significant resources to reviewing Epstein documents. Patel disputes the exact number but won't provide accurate figures, which suggests the real number is embarrassing, even if not quite 1,000. 2. The FBI specifically reviewed for high-profile names, including Donald Trump. Patel tries to frame this as routine legal review, but won't explain why media reports and whistleblowers specifically mention Trump if all names were treated equally. 3. Some investigations were impacted by resource allocation to document review. Patel claims operations continued, but admits resources were flexed, which is bureaucratic language for priorities shifted. 4. The FBI director either doesn't know or won't share basic information, like how many times Trump's name appears. Both possibilities are concerning. 5. There are no plans for full transparency. Patel repeatedly hides behind privacy law and legal requirements without acknowledging exceptions that could allow disclosure. These aren't interpretations. These are facts from the hearing transcript, and they paint a troubling picture. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren asked the questions that needed asking. She pushed back on evasions. She demanded accountability, FBI. Director Patel gave the answers he was always going to. Give, deny, deflect, defend, claim. Everything was proper while providing no details that would allow verification. We learned that something significant happened, that resources were dedicated to protecting information, that powerful people's names received special attention. We didn't learn the full truth, because that truth remains locked behind classifications and redactions and legal justifications. Jeffrey Epstein's safe might be physically open, but metaphorically it remains closed. Evidence exists, but stays hidden. Names are known, but stay redacted. Justice is promised, but never delivered. That needs to change. Through pressure, through oversight, through refusal to accept secrecy as normal. Thank you for watching. If this video informed you, share it. If it angered you, channel that anger into action. Contact representatives. Demand transparency. Don't let this story disappear, because the safe will only open when we force it open, when the cost of keeping it closed becomes greater than the cost of revelation. Until next time, stay informed. Stay engaged. Stay committed to truth. And remember, no one is above the law. But that principle only holds if we fight for it.